Police Authority Legal Committee. This is our second meeting to be held in public, which I very much welcome. We have apologies. First of all, we have a small issue with the technology, which has led to just marginally delayed start and may mean that one or two of our participants are only able to join us down the line and not be seen. But I hope that that would affect the meeting too much. A small point by way of opening remarks. First of all, apologies from Michelle Miller, one of our board members. On timing, we had our last meeting in March. It was intended that we would have a meeting in May, but in fact we stood that meeting down. There wasn't the volume of business that was required. It means that one or two small consequential adjustments in timing, because we brought forward what had intended to be a September meeting to this date of the 1st of August, but nothing too significant. I think that that will work itself out. And another small point, we had referred, I had referred last time to the wish to have items in public, either at this meeting or in some ways they might be reported via the chair's report to the board. One of the things that we reported to the board in March was that we would be doing some benchmarking, and in fact subsequent following discussions between the SPA and Police Scotland Legal, it's been agreed that rather than have a separate benchmarking exercise for Police Scotland Legal, that will be incorporated in an SPA commitment to consideration of corporate services overall, and that is one of the SPA commitments in its corporate plan. So that was all I wanted to say by way of introductory remarks. Declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest from committee members? No. Decisions taken since the last meeting. I think we've taken one decision in relation to a legal case, but since that is confidential, that sits there. Decision on taking business in private. I've talked about of our committee members content that those should be taken in private. Thank you very much. Okay. Moving on then to minute and actions from the previous meeting. The minute from that first public meeting of the 13th of March for approval. Katrina, you had rather noted one small correction which we should make. I think item 3 on Police Scotland legal data, paragraph 2. I acknowledge there was no new case management document management system in place, rather than, however, it should read as rather a development, just for clarity. With that adjustment, are members content to approve? Thank you very much. Moving on then to the action log, legal data. This is one of the actions that was slightly adjusted, that needs adjustment in light of our change of date, so that a written response by September would be expected. James, is that still sensible? Interim report.
Yes, Chair.
Yep.
Yes,
okay.
Chair. I can also advise, though, that meetings have now taken place between legal and finance, and those the changes to the existing claims register are in hand, have been agreed. It's just now about implementation and a few little gremlins that I could go into if you wish.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's good progress. Thank you very much. Members content then to have that as ongoing. And that was an action very pleased to see take forward. Non-disclosure agreement, we agreed last time, an annual report, and that's been added to the work plan. So proposed to close. Members content? Yeah, thank you very much. Moving on then to item 3, statistical report on ill health. Jackie Kidd. Jackie.
Good morning, Chair. So this is the standard report to the committee, confirming approvals of ill health, retirement and injury and duty under delegated approval. The report covers the timescale from March to July, and I'm happy to take any questions on the report in front of you today.
And I think you mentioned to me that there was a typo, although that's been corrected in the public papers. Is that correct?
It has. So on the table at 2.1.3, the columns were just not totaling properly. So it should, the totals across the bottom should read 48, 48. So 8, 40 and 8 add to 48, and then 41 and 7 again adding to 48. So apologies for that.
Okay, thank you. Katrina, I think I saw your hand up. Katrina Stewart, yes?
No, it's Caroline
Sorry,
Stewart.
it's Caroline Stewart. Apologies.
We're too similar, Chair. We're too similar.
Only in this respect.
Thanks, Jackie, as always, for your report. And you know, it's one of these things you read, and on the face of it, it looks like we're really ploughing through these cases on a timely manner. And I guess my question is then just to double check that we don't have any backlog anymore. And that pace of actually clearing them, because we did have a bit of a backlog. Have we caught up with that now? And is there any aged claims that we're awaiting a decision on? Thanks.
So we're probably back into the timescales where they just take a wee bit of time to work through the system. So there is no backlog as such, but cases do take a number of months to actually work through the system. So, but it's all back on track.
So it's all back on track now. We don't have any issues around the injury on duty or the health practitioners that we had problems with before. And
no, we're continuing to work really hard, and Optima Health have been really supportive in making sure there's been additional appointments to ensure the numbers continue to go through. I think the injury and duty ones are probably still a bit older than what we would want them to be, but yeah, that's backdated to the date the individual retires once the injury and duty claim is approved or not. But if it is approved, then it's backdated to the date that the officer retires. So we're still, that's probably the one that we're still working hard to try and get back down into a kind of normal rhythm. But injury and the health retirement ones are now progressing through the system as we would hope them to.
That's great news. So well done on that. And I guess, how long do you think before the injury and duty ones get back to a kind of?
I would like to think over, if the number of appointments stay where they are just now, I would think over the next couple of months we should be back on an even keel with them as well. I think they've just taken a wee bit longer to get them back down.
Yeah,
there's some trials going on that actually may cut some timescales. So the report going to the People Committee in September, just kind of highlighting some work that's been going on to try and reduce the timescales further, following some really good engagement work we've done with the Federation. So that's still in a kind of trial place, but if that helps, I will obviously let this committee know that we've kind of managed to reduce those timescales even further.
Smashing. Well, listen, great job. That's been a lot of work, so well done. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Caroline.
Thank you. And can I just ask, just picking up at the end of that, then, what is the ideal, that if we've got a particular metric for what is the intended time scale, and is that 2.2.4 number of cases, is it then simply coincidence that 29 have been reported and approved, or have they been? Is it those same 29 within what looks then to be quite a short time scale?
So all 29 requests for injury and duty have been approved by the authority. So all the ones that have come forward, the approvals for injury and duty, it's a tighter discretion that the authority have got to whether they do or don't approve them. Okay,
no, that's very helpful. Thank you. Okay, any other questions on this? Otherwise, we move forward. Thank you very much. Item 4, legal services claims handling, a quarterly report, or whatever the timescale has been. James, would you like to talk on that?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. This is the routine report that comes to this committee to show the number of claims that have been settled in the last quarter and throughout the financial year. members will see that the numbers are the same, because obviously this relates only to the first quarter this year. So we settled 7 employer liability claims at an average of about £8,000. We settled 13 public liability claims at roughly £2,500 on average, and we settled 84 motor liability claims at an average of about £4,400. The numbers in the table are very much in line with the numbers that are brought to the committee each meeting. So there is nothing that I would wish to highlight as being of concern. One thing that one thing that I would wish to alert you to is that our finance colleagues obviously pay an awful lot of attention to the figures going out in settlements from the legal department. And the question was simply asked why motor claims are slightly higher than they used to be. We have had a look at that. The number of claims coming in are by and large the same as they have always been. However, the labour costs on fixing vehicles has gone up. The parts cost for vehicles has gone up. And unfortunately, some of the times where we've had to keep people on hire vehicles has extended because there's difficulties in getting parts. So that has resulted in a real life increase. But there's nothing there per se that suggests that there's anything untoward. It simply is an illustration of real-time cost rises in the real world. I can pause there, Chair, if you wish to ask, or anybody wishes to ask questions on that part. I was then going to go on to say that you'd asked for 5 years figures, and I was going to address that.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. Caroline.
I was just going to say the same thing, so I'll let you carry on, James, because it was around that point that somebody had raised that it was previously, and I was thinking, well, because we can't see that from the report because there's no kind of aged analysis over years to see. So on the base of it, it looks pretty good, but we're kind of online, but we don't really know because these figures could be wildly different from last year's and the year before and the years before. So I think that aged analysis is very important.
Okay. Caroline, I do. Sorry, there you go. Katrina, I do see your hand up now. Katrina.
You do, Chair. Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you very much for that. I know we've had this discussion in the past around separating out what, in terms of employers' liability claims, what is actually the result of an employment tribunal and what is, a liability in relation to, say, an accident at work, something like that. So I really just wondered, from the previous discussions we've had, how that is progressing in terms of separating those things out. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to address that. It actually falls into something that I mentioned in the previous item, which is the claims register as it stands doesn't allow us to differentiate. However, the claims register as proposed and being implemented will allow us to break that down into employer liability and employer tribunal, for want of a better phrase. So going forward, that type of information will be able to be distilled. It's just not possible at the moment, given the free text entry of the claims register that we've got. But as I say, the drop-down menus that I spoke about at a previous meeting should allow us to differentiate and distill that information going forward. Certainly not for the next meeting, but hopefully before the end of the next financial year, I would hope to be able to break those down for you.
Oh, that's excellent. Thank you very much. That was going to be my follow-up question, is what kind of timescales you had in mind. So and do you think not for the next meeting, but definitely before the end of this financial year? Any sooner than that, do you think?
The discussions that I've had with finance colleagues are going very well, and obviously because we're in almost the mid-year point, any change to the claims register should be done now. It shouldn't be done immediately after the year end or immediately before the year end. So I would hope, I don't want to make false promises, but I would hope that it would be up and running in the next 3 to 4 months.
Lovely. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, James. And I must say the committee would warmly commend that approach. So our next meeting will be November. It would be really good to have something in place, even if the reporting on it, as it were, is minimal by November. But having made that introduction and those changes, no, that's very good progress. Thank you. Anything else then on this, or perhaps we move on to the 5-year analysis such that you have? I'd like to comment on that, and then I'll open this up to questions.
Yes, the figures as they stand are relatively stark, in as much as there does seem to be almost a level of around about 30 odd per annum that are being settled. There was a reduction in 2021. There was also a reduction in 2021 of the public claims, but I suppose we would probably have expected that, given that much of 2021 was a COVID lockdown. So we would probably have expected to see that. I obviously can't really give any reason why the reduction in 2021 was also illustrated in the employer claims. It simply might be that people weren't at work hurting themselves quite as often. They were working from home. It's the only analysis that I can really come with. What I would say is that over the last 5 years, the overwhelming majority of cases do settle at relatively low amounts, but there are outliers. And obviously it's the outlier cases that are brought to this committee and discussed at this committee in the private session. The committee are aware of the cases that do attract those large sums. But the figures are there. I'm happy to answer any questions that I can. But what I would say is that I think that there's a relatively consistent level, and that there's nothing there that say, well, what on earth was happening in 2022, where we saw, a 30% increase in employer cases or something like that. That's not borne out by the figures. What I would say is that it tends to be relatively uniform, with that dip in 2021, which I can only assume, as I say, is down to the fact that the society was in a lockdown.
Thank you, James. And yes, I agree. The figures here are very consistent, and overwhelmingly cases settle at under 75k. Over 75k is exceptional. But these are all cases that are settled. The time lag for particularly, I would have thought, well, all of these claims, the time lag is such, and we've seen several that's been going on for several years. So if there is an increase, I wouldn't expect it to be working its way through quite yet. Might be an observation. So I think I'm going to be particularly interested to see the long tail of perhaps any COVID-related claims, ill health, employment, something like that. But I mean, we'll just have to do a bit of horizon scanning and think, because past performance is not in this case necessarily an indication of future performance. I guess. Any questions, comments from members? I think that's very helpful of what it is, and keep an eye on it. Grant, anything you would? Okay. No, thank you very much indeed. And the final item then in this public session is the committee work plan. So we made a small adjustment to our meetings. So the next meeting is November. I think the other thing would add into this is the expectation that in January, in common with good practice across the organisation, we will have a development day for the committee, which means that if we do it in January, we'll be able to do as we did this year, to incorporate that in the certificate of assurance statement of assurance, which we'll be looking at in March. Members content with that? Anything else that we need to highlight in this section before we move on to the private session? No? Okay,